Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I am very privileged to have David Scott, which most of you probably know as the Kiffness here on the online studio with me. And today we're going to have a conversation about SAMRO, which is in the news right now, the South African Music Rights Organization, and the fact that it recently come to light that they have confirmed to have been stolen millions of rands or siphoning off these millions of rands off of their artists. So SAMRO, as an organization, the South African Music Rights Organization, is responsible for paying royalties to artists after these artists' songs was played on radio stations in South Africa, or I presume television stations as well. But we'll get into that right now. Thanks for being here, and remember to subscribe to this channel if you want more news like this. And also, if you want to become a paid contributor, we would also really appreciate that. And you can do that by just sending sign me up to the number on the screen. All right, David, thanks for being here.
Willem, thanks for having me, man. It's good to be here.
Can you explain to us how the process works of you guys basically getting paid from SAMRO?
So it all starts, here in the studio. If I'm sitting here and I write a song, I'm automatically, I own the intellectual property of the song that I write here. So now it's up to me now to register that song with SAMRO. There's an online portal where, as soon as we've written a song, we can say, I've written a song called whatever. And you give them all the details. You say if there were any collaborators, you put those details in. If there are any splits that you agreed upon with the other musicians, you say, okay, I'm going to take 50%, you take 50%, whatever it is. You register all of that with SAMRO. There's a portal, which is it's been a little bit difficult to use in the past, but I think they have made efforts to make it a little bit easier with online stuff. And so you register your song. And then it's up to SAMRO to then make sure that, if that song ever gets played on radio stations or on TV, as you said, or even in restaurants, all those places that play music, if they're a business that uses your music, they're entitled to pay SAMRO a royalty or a SAMRO license, which is basically, money that SAMRO is meant to pay out to their artists. Now, a lot of the time, for whatever reason, songs aren't registered correctly by the artists, or at SAMRO, they make errors where it can be something as simple as registering the name of the song incorrectly. I've had an instance where I had a song called "Where Are You Going" featuring Matthew Gold, which did pretty well across a couple of radio stations. And I registered the song correctly with the title being "Where Are You Going?" ? It's a question, right? But then whether it was on SAMRO's side or on the radio station side, I'm not sure. The song was registered without a question mark. And something as small as that will trigger an error where basically where the song plays, it doesn't match up with my registration. And then that song ends up in a thing that they call black box, where, there's songs that have accrued royalties, but then end up in this black box, or it's otherwise called as undoc. Now, there are thousands and thousands of songs that sit in this undoc where, radio stations have logged them, but no one's claimed them. It can also sit there if an artist has written a song and just, didn't register the song. Either way, the song has, accrued royalties, but, no one's claimed them yet. And it used to sit there for about 5 years, right? And if no one had claimed any of the royalties on the song over a 5-year period, what SAMRO would do would be to just distribute the money from those unclaimed songs across its members, or it would pay it out to the publishers. and then the publishers would pay it to their composers. Somewhere along the line, they decided to change that to 3 years. So you've only got 3 years now to figure out, if you're getting paid for your songs or not. And then after that, it's supposed to be going out to publishers or the composers who are other members at SAMRO. So that's pretty much how it works. And
Okay.
yeah, every radio station has different rates, and it's all worked out according to how much ad revenue stations make, obviously from adverts that they play every year.
So basically, how big the radio station is depending the amount of royalties that they'll pay you.
Correct, and obviously each ad rate is worked out by the listenership of each station. They've got a pretty waxed calculation, and then from that ad revenue, each station pays out. And we've actually, I've been pushing over the years to figure out what each station's rates are, because we've got platforms like Radio Monitor, which is basically like a big Shazam that can listen to every single station and figure out exactly how many times your song's played on each station and at what time. It's pretty accurate. So I've actually subscribed to Radio Monitor in the past, and I've seen exactly how many times my song is played on, I don't know, KFM or Highveld. And then I sort of A/B that against my SAMRO statements. And so many times, I've seen that a song's played 1,000 times, but then on my SAMRO statements, it'll tell me that it's only played, 30 times on a particular station. And then it's up to me then to go to SAMRO and say, you're only paying me for the song playing 30 times on this particular station, but I've got the evidence here that shows that it's played 1,000 times. And in the past, we haven't actually been able to work out what we're owed, because we never had access to the unit rates of each station. But the CEO at the time, Mark Rosen, made that available. And then we were able to work out to a T what we're owed from each station. So that's pretty much how it all works.
Okay, so how did you actually find out now, after you found out that there was some discrepancies between the amount of money that you were paid and the amount of times that your song was played? How did you actually find out that there was something more sinister going on at SAMRO?
So back in 2019, I was receiving my SAMRO statements, and it's pennies. It's like I was getting statements for maybe 300 Rand and that kind of thing. And I had quite a few songs that were doing well on radio stations, sort of from 2012 up until 2019. And I just thought, something's not adding up. I should be getting pretty decent royalties from these songs, but I'm just not getting anything. So, and I'd registered all my songs correctly, or as far as I knew, I registered them correctly. And so I'd reach out to SAMRO, I'd phone them, but every time I got through to, the helpline, I'd just hit a dead end. Every time I emailed them, I'd hit a dead end. But there was one particular week where I had a few shows in Joburg, so I actually set aside time to go to the SAMRO building in Bloemfontein, and I managed to organize a meeting with someone there. So we set a time, and I rock up at SAMRO, and the person just isn't there. No warning or anything. So I tell the secretary there, like, I'm not going to leave this place until someone comes and helps me, because I've come all the way from Cape Town. This is unacceptable. And eventually, after a couple of hours, a gentleman by the name of Eugene comes down. He's got his laptop and he opens it up. And I think what we're looking at was the undock, or the black box.
Yes.
And I told him about my songs. So, we find the songs in this spreadsheet. And there it is. I saw my songs. And then next to the songs, I see a name called David Alexander. And, I've got no sort of knowledge of who sits on the board at SAMRO. I don't know who this person is, I just, as soon as I find this out, there was a bit of relief, because at least I knew that my songs were there, gathering royalties. But it was matched to this weird name. So I put out a tweet back in 2019. As soon as this happened, I said, I'm here at SAMRO registering my songs, and someone called David Alexander is claiming my royalties. And then that's when people, made me aware of David Alexander, who at the time was a board member and the owner of Sheer Publishing. And, that obviously came as a big shock. And, my spidey senses started tingling. And I reached out to David Alexander, and I just wanted to find out if he knew anything about this. And it just seemed very suspect. So, we had a little conversation, and, he kind of got a little bit defensive and aggressive because he felt like I was accusing him of stealing my royalties. But we kind of left it at that. I met with him afterwards, and it seemed like he tried to help. He even offered me a publishing deal, because he said, with my knowledge and all this stuff, we can work out what you owed. But at the time, I was, with Sony ATV, and I kind of declined the offer.
So we quickly listen to that phone call that you had with him that you posted today before we go on.
Sure thing.
I think that'll give a lot of context, especially if people can hear how he responded to your questions. Okay, let's listen to that. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it now, David, but I'll let you know when it's done.
No, I can hear.
Okay.
Probably not going to answer. He already knows who it is.
Hello?
Hi, David.
Yeah.
Hi, David. You're speaking to Dave Scott here from the Kiffness.
Hey, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. And yourself?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
David, I'm phoning with regards to some songs that I've discovered have your name on them. So I went to SAMRO yesterday, and I discovered that, you've been collecting royalties on my behalf.
Okay. I assume not for me personally, you're talking about the company.
It's with regards to particularly Find a Way, which is a song that I wrote in 2014, and I've been trying to collect royalties from that song for quite some time. But when I went through to SAMRO yesterday, I saw that your name was on there and not mine.
We're not talking about my personal name, or we are talking about David Alexander?
Yeah, David Alexander.
Really?
Yes.
Me?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not. I'm not aware of why that would have happened. If it had been under my publishing company, I might have thought that there could have been, an assignment via somebody else. But under me personally, that's very bizarre.
I see that you're a SAMRO board member. So is there any possibility that you could look into it and
well, of course. I mean, it's it's uncomfortable for me to hear this. It's never happened before. I have written on so few songs that I would certainly remember if I'd written a song for the Kiffness.
Yeah.
So,
It seems very suspect, and I have heard that this isn't the first time or the first instance that Sheer Publishing has collected on behalf of other artists.
Okay, so let's go back to my question to you again.
Yes.
And please understand me clearly. Are you saying that
your name is on there?
Alexander is the composer of the song?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a problem.
Yeah.
When Sheer Publishing collects on behalf of people, there is at SAMRO an agreement that allows them to do that.
Well, what's that agreement? And is it legal?
Okay, so let's separate the two issues in your head. Do you understand clearly?
I understand very clearly.
Firstly, David Alexander, on your song, it's a mistake.
And how is that mistake made?
It's an error, and it will be corrected.
Okay, but how does that
No, I understand that clearly.
I understand.
Are you very clear?
I'm very clear, and I'd like to understand.
I will not claim a song for you. However, your second statement that Sheer is claiming on behalf of artists that they don't represent is a lie. No song can be submitted to SAMRO without accompanying documentation. Okay? So if there was a document from David Alexander for a song called I'll Find a Way and it was mismatched to your song, that I can get. Okay? There's an error that was made internally at SAMRO.
All right.
If there's a song from another composer to Sheer or to a company that Sheer administers, without that contract, Sheer cannot collect.
All right.
So let's.
It just seems like a very coincidental mistake that a SAMRO board member was put instead of my name, but I'll take your word for it. And
why would a SAMRO board member want your money?
It's called
it's called corruption. Is what I was trying to say.
I'm already frustrated with your tone.
I'm also very frustrated.
I understand why you would be frustrated, but in the beginning when you phoned, I would make every single effort to help you because a mistake has been made. But when you start to make claims that are unacceptable and defamatory, I start to get irritated.
All right. Well,
so rather take the point and say, I'm sorry, I don't understand why my name is on your song. I will fix it. Send me the details. Anything else? Any further steps that you make about the company claiming other people's royalties, I'm very upset with.
Okay. Well, let's work together to fix this.
That's what we do. We
All right.
fix people's royalties. Okay. So we solve composers' problems. We don't make them. I don't understand how this problem was made, and we will fix it.
Okay.
All right. So please send me the details. Have you got my email address?
I don't have your email address.
David@sheer.co.
All right.
All right. Send the song number, the screenshot, whatever SAMRO gave you as information.
All right.
And from my whatever 600 Rand or 300 Rand that I get from SAMRO, whatever it was, I will make sure that they reverse that and credit it back to you.
It's definitely a lot more than that, but I look forward to receiving it.
I don't get paid more than that as a composer. I'm not a composer.
Can you tell us how much was it?
Right.
So I've seen my royalty checks.
Okay.
I'm a publisher.
All right. Cool. Thanks, David.
Pleasure.
Okay, bye.
Can you tell us how much was it, David? Just for interest's sake.
So for those two songs, I think we're talking in the region of maybe 150,000 Rand, something like that. I mean, it's not a life-changing amount of money, but you know, it does help, especially as a young up-and-coming musician. You know, if you're not getting that money, it obviously it makes things a little bit difficult if you're just not getting what's owed to you.
Of course, and it doesn't really matter how much money it was, even if it was just 300 rands, it's still 300 rands that he had stolen.
Yeah. So there are two kind of things that stuck out while listening to that conversation again. The first one was when he mentioned, you know, it was a mistake and we'll fix it. And ever since the story kind of came out, Carte Blanche did like a big expose on it. Hundreds of musicians, you know, wrote to me and messaged me saying that they hear the exact same thing. They register their songs, it does well on radio, they don't get their royalties, and then when they follow up, they say, oh, sorry, it was just a mistake. We registered the wrong person, or we registered the name incorrectly. Now, you could just call it a mistake, or it could be something that's done by design so that it ends up in undoc. And as I mentioned earlier, if it sits there for 3 years, it's supposed to be paid out to members. But what I suspect they've been doing is just before these songs expire, they just quickly, you know, change the details, because after close to 3 years, they kind of just assume, well, no one's going to come for this now. And so they'll change the names or create these fake profiles and then siphon the royalties from the songs that way.
What stood out for me was the fact that he got very rude very quickly during that phone call, and you were just asking him questions, and
Yeah.
he really got audibly upset quite early in there. Tell me, David, are you quite sure that you had registered the specific songs in that you guys were talking about right here correctly on SAMRO, that there was no mistake from your side?
Well, yeah, the fact that it's registered to someone called David Alexander and not David Scott is quite a big mistake to make. So there's no ways I would ever register the song under
Yes.
another name. So I'm pretty confident that that was something not done by me, but definitely someone at SAMRO.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are certain instances where songs can end up in undoc, and a big one. I'm talking specifically when the fault is with the artist. So normally what happens, when you collaborate with other artists, you have a sort of loose agreement in the studio as to who is going to get what. Normally, if I'm working with other artists, if there's one other artist, we'll split it 50-50. If there are 4 people working on a song together, we'll just split it, 25% each. It's the easiest way to sort it out without, getting into heated arguments and that kind of thing. But then it's up to each artist to register the song on their own SAMRO portal. And what sometimes happens is people forget the splits, and then they give
Yes.
themselves like a bigger percentage or whatever it is. But then the other artists will give the correct splits, and then there's that mismatch. And so to kind of avoid any legal disputes, SAMRO will just put it in undoc until all the registrations match up correctly.
Of course.
But this, yeah, in this instance, I
it's-
don't know how David
it-
Alexander ended up there.
It's a very, very big coincidence that if there's a mistake made and then it ends up that one of the board members at SAMRO gets paid your royalties. And I think that's the biggest story here, is this coincidence. So, David, let's get back to what happened afterwards, after you had this phone call and after you talked to David Alexander, or David Alexander as he is registered.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing that kind of I thought to myself was, if you want to kind of go undetected, one of the best things to do is to remove a letter from your name, because if anyone ever goes searching, they'll obviously search for your full name.
Your real name, yes.
Yeah. So if you just remove a letter and say Alexander, that's obviously one of the ways to kind of make your name
That's also
undetectable.
very suspicious, yes. So what happened then with David Alexander, between you and him, after you guys had this phone call that we just listened to?
So that phone call was in 2019. In 2020, if I'm not mistaken, he sold his publishing company to Downtown, which is a publishing company in New York. He then stepped down as a board member, I think, in 2022. And then after that, went to America. And then from what was, revealed in the Fundudzi report, which was, spearheaded by the COO, Mpho Mofikoe, David, when he initially applied for a visa to go to the US, his visa was denied because the US consulate were able to pick up that there was an investigation where his name was implicated, and so they denied him a visa. So what he did was he went back to the SAMRO chairman, who is still the chairman, Nicholas Mawani, and Nicholas wrote a letter of amnesty to tell the US consulate that David's innocent, and basically they granted him a visa after that, so he's now living in the US.
That is also quite suspicious, the fact that he wrote him that letter of amnesty, even though they probably knew that he was implicated in this investigation, and also his name was implicated, as you said, with many more such cases exactly like yours. and again, a very big coincidence that his name gets or falls onto other artists as well. But are there any other people that might have been connected to the board or were on the board themselves that you know of that were also implicated, but that also followed the same strategy to siphon off money from artists?
Yeah, so as far as I know, David was probably the one who was able to siphon off the most money, from what I understand, in the region of 45 million rand over the years.
That's a lot.
But yeah, it's definitely not an isolated incident. There are other board members, other publishers who, for whatever reason, have access to all the data at SAMRO and are able to siphon off money, or change the name of songs so that it ends up in undoc. And yeah, it's a huge problem. So the board now consists of 4 independent non-executive directors. There are 3 publishers who I think have been sort of kicked off the board through this EGM, and then there are 3 composers, one of which is Gabby Leroux, who wrote in Kalakata, and he's got a massive catalog of songs, and I'm not totally aware of all the ins and outs of what happened in the previous EGM, but basically, as far as I know, when the decision came to either keep Mpho, the CEO, on, or to suspend her, the only ones who backed her were the composers on the board, which to me kind of shows that everyone else is implicated in some way.
Yes,
but yeah, she
everyone
was
should have
basically
known
suspended.
about this.
Sorry?
My thought that I just got was that everyone on the board should have had at least some knowledge of this happening, because I mean, there's probably a lot of money sitting in these undocumented songs, and this money had to go somewhere. And as you said, the normal procedure was to distribute this among members or publishing houses. But then, I mean, it should have been quite obvious for everyone who had access to this information to immediately see that these undocumented songs, just before they expire and the money gets paid out, someone suddenly claims them, and it's usually not the artist. And that should also not be very difficult to see, as one person cannot sound 10 different ways, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, so Nicholas Mawene, I'm pretty sure, is highly implicated, and I think the one sort of piece of evidence that kind of shows this pretty clearly is the fact that he wrote this letter of amnesty letting David Alexander go to America, with full knowledge of the fact that he's implicated in this report. And then there are other publishers on the board who I know personally, and I think are pretty good people. There's Ryan Hill from Universal. There's Roland Nyker from Sony ATV. Roland is my publisher, and they're lovely people, but I don't think they should be sitting on the board while there's a forensic investigation against them. So if they can have their names cleared, and it shows that they're not involved in any of this, then I think they should potentially go back onto the board. But until such time, I think, the right decision was made to, well, I think we're only finding out on Friday. We had an EGM a couple of days ago to vote to see if these publishers should stay on the board. And I took the very difficult decision to say that I think they should be kicked off until their names can be cleared.
But
so
this report from the forensic investigation was already completed more than, or just less than 2 years ago. I think it was September 2023, and still the findings, it was not published yet. I think, as you mentioned, one of the previous chairmen sort of made some references to it, but was the full forensic report ever published in the last 2 years?
I haven't seen the full forensic report. I've just been kind of getting drips and drabs of what's transpired, like David Alexander getting this letter of amnesty, and yeah, just speaking to other artists and hearing their stories and, similar things that they've gone through, where they've registered their songs and then, something gets changed, and you're never going to see that money unless you become an investigative journalist like I have.
Yourself.
Yeah. So it's difficult to know who to trust and what the steps forward should be. But, I've kind of reached the stage where I think I would love to serve on the board. I wouldn't want to get paid or anything like that. I think it's something that should be treated as a sort of philanthropic exercise. I'm lucky enough now to get most of my money from platforms like YouTube. I think YouTube pays me more in a month than SAMRO has ever paid me in my entire life.
Yes,
So,
of course.
I'm lucky that I have this platform now, and I've got a platform that shows me exactly how much I've earned and when I'm going to get paid, as I'm sure you know.
Yes.
And it's just a very transparent platform, and there's no reason why SAMRO can't be the same. We have the technology to automate this entire system. There are way too many people that work at SAMRO who, as soon as you start introducing more and more people, like the chances of human error occurring are way higher. But, if a couple years down the line I ever served on the board, I'd use the technology at our disposal, like Radio Monitor, which has also come out with a new thing called Autolytics, I think it's called, which is very precise and very accurate and would solve so many of the problems there. And these board members, I think a lot of them are there because they get a fat paycheck. The independents are getting paid about R500,000 a year.
Wow.
And the composers are getting I think about a third of that. So that was also one of the things that came up in the EGM, was the fact that the independents are getting paid way too much and the composers and the publishers are getting paid too little. But if I ever served, I'm on the record saying now that I would do it. It would make sense for SAMRO to maybe pay for my flights or a hotel or something like that. But apart from that, I would happily do it just so that we have a system that works and, artists end up getting paid what they're supposed to be, paid, without all this nonsense going on.
It's very suspicious that report was not released yet, but I think we can end this off. Yeah, I think you know a lot more than most of us, like me and the people watching. What is your future prediction? When do you think this report will be released in full, and do you think we'll see a lot of criminal prosecutions coming from this? And the reason I'm asking this is because this is, it's a non-government organization, SAMRO. I think a lot of people assume that SAMRO was government run. I also assumed that when I first started looking into these things, when I saw your video. But this is just a normal non-profit organization that it has a monopoly on all royalties being paid in South Africa. So do you believe will be criminal prosecutions once the report is released and once we see exactly how many people are involved and how much money was stolen by each of them?
Well, yeah, it's difficult to say. All I know is that sunlight is the best disinfectant, and kudos to the now suspended COO Mpho Mofikoe. I think she's a very brave lady, and the fact that she spoke publicly about this stuff has reignited the flame in artists like myself who want to see justice. It's absolutely insane that someone can siphon in the region of 45 million rand from artists who are now, they don't have a pension, they can't retire, they're struggling. It's criminal. And I would love to see people that have stolen artists' royalties deliberately to be behind bars. I would love nothing more than that to happen. But whether it is going to happen, I don't know. All I can do is, come onto platforms like yours and speak about my experience and hope that, we get the right people on board. I've already, since that post that I made this morning, I've had a lawyer reach out to me and, people who want to help, I think, are going to be the people that are going to make a difference to SAMRO. And I've never actually seen artists unify like this before. It's actually quite amazing to see. I think the more and more we kind of speak out about this stuff, you know, the more we can unify as artists. And I've tried to do it in the past, but it's like trying to herd cats. Unfortunately, like artists, you know, are all doing their own things, and you know, they just assume nothing's ever going to change at SAMRO. And you know, we haven't really been able to make any major difference in the past. But I think we're at a point now where, you know, we can make a difference, and you know, get this entire board, apart from maybe the composers, you know, out of the board, and you know, form a board of people that, you know, just want a system that works, aren't there for paychecks, aren't there to embezzle money, and we'll see what happens.
All right, perfect. I think that's a good note to end this off. I think we covered everything there is to cover about the story. Thanks for coming up, David. I really appreciate the time that you took out of your day to come and talk to us.
Thanks, Willem. I appreciate it.
And also thank you guys for watching this video. And we'll see you later in the future when there's something interesting like this to cover in a live stream. Goodbye. God bless every one of you.